Hi, everybody. This is Nauman, all the way from Pakistan. I hope all of you are staying safe and staying indoors. I've been in the API space for around 4 years now, primarily building API tooling, advocating about open API, building code generators. So a lot of experience around it, and I've really enjoyed working with the community because the API community is great. You all could agree on that. So today I'm going to be talking about async API and how we can use and leverage async API to build really consistent event-driven architectures. And it's been great to see the rising popularity of async API itself and how people are really coming around to it. And with this conference, I think we've really gotten to the next level. So starting off, I think we got to learn a lot from OpenAPI and how we've come along as a community there. So OpenAPI, starting off, we were having these competitions between Raml, Blueprint, OpenAPI, all of these different description formats, but finally and thankfully so, we came around to one. So I think one lesson certainly is to stick to one format, and with all the tooling that we have seen and the amazing things that people have done with OpenAPI, I think we can all agree that their descriptions themselves are amazing. We made a big mistake of not adopting it early enough. So we saw a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of tooling that wasn't really supporting the right versions. And yeah, now that we have come to this point, we're really designing those APIs first, getting feedback from them, and then really going on from there. So I think there's a lot to learn from OpenAPI itself. And considering async API is a sister spec of it, we can really take those lessons and apply them there. And that's what I'm going to try to do today. So yeah, from the lesson learned there, we need to create async APIs for all of our APIs, like religiously. Because once you start implementing them and there are no API descriptions, there are so many discrepancies that start to appear, especially when your organization has more and more APIs coming along. So really, this is a no-brainer, create your async API descriptions. Then what we tend to see is because a lot of the times there are versions that are just cropping up, there are breaking changes that are happening in APIs. We've all seen those with APIs that we have developed, especially when an organization becomes large enough, and then it frustrates us as developers as to what's happening, and even developers who are consuming it. So the lesson for that is design first. Before getting into implementations of your APIs, if you actually design it first, what you can do is really get early feedback from your stakeholders, because honestly, changing code is painful. Going into a version, creating a new version of it, maintaining all those different versions isn't really pretty. So you'd rather change the design itself and get feedback on it and really decide on the contract before you move forward. This contract or this async API that you're creating would act as your single source of truth. This is where we'd be taking our life cycle forward from. Having said that, we're all good with creating API descriptions yet. What happens is we see all these inconsistent interfaces. So some people are naming their parameters in Pascal case, some are naming them in camel case. We're seeing documentation that's mostly incomplete, missing descriptions, missing example values, and it really doesn't make for a pretty experience. So you've got to follow a style guideline. Now, with a machine readable description on your hand, what becomes really nice is you can actually automate this process. And today I've news for you. So just over this weekend, people at guys at Stoplight have created a new version of Spectral. So this tool that we love to lend our OpenAPI documents now has support for async API. So you should really check out this new version that has come along. You can find the link right down there. So what you can do with Spectral is going forward from actually validating your documents, you can lend them and really lend them against a predefined rule set. So it's not just about validating the schema, it's about validating, are you following the right conventions? Are you not missing out on descriptions? And with this tool, what is amazing is you can create custom rules. So say in your organizations, you just want your names to be Pascal case. You can set that, create a custom rule set. You want to only use MQTT in your organization for one reason or the other, you can enforce that, or even just like recommend that. So it's not a case of just going all the way or not. You can create different levels of warnings in your style guides depending on where your API program is and how you want to take it forward. And just as you can see in the screenshot here, all you need to do is go into your CLI, link this description, and you should see a list of things that you're doing wrong. Really, you can also do this in your Visual Studio Code. There's an extension for that, or you can make it part of your CI/CD using a GitHub action. But really, it's really powerful. So we've built a beautiful API description. It's consistent. All of the people are really following the conventions there are, but you still need to implement it. And if the implementation doesn't respect the contract that you made, there's really not much use of the contract there is. So again, with a machine readable description, you can generate code, both server side and client side from it. So it really ensures that your developers are focusing on what's important. So it's writing actually logic for your APIs and really building functionality, while all the redundant stuff is done by the generator. And on top of that, and very importantly, your APIs are built according to the contract that you decided on first. So this amazing tool that folks from AsyncAPI have created, this generator, allows you to generate code in Node.js and Java for now, but yeah, support it, add more templates, and I think this is really the way forward to go. Now, you've got a good implementation, you've got a good description, but developers who are actually consuming this API, your implementation, are still struggling. Why does that happen? It's bad documentation or incomplete documentation. With an async API and a good contract that is up to date, you can actually generate documentation too. So you can either generate it in Markdown or HTML. Don't miss out on descriptions and examples in the async API, because that is what really makes for good documentation. You can actually add these as rules in your spectral pipeline, and sets at descriptions or examples are necessary. Maybe even multiple examples are necessary. That depends on how you want to go about it. But really generate this documentation from it. If you want to put it somewhere into your own documentation, you can generate a Markdown version or take an HTML version and publish it to GitHub pages. It's really going to make your life easier. With your documentation ready, I think a big part that we miss out on, especially in lean organizations, is you need to put this documentation for developers to discover. So create a central hub where all your documentation generated from your API, async API, is hosted. So a central hub where people can find, search, and really consume your APIs. And so you don't end up, your developers don't end up really creating duplicate APIs or doing the same thing. Now, a description and all the things that you can do with it, don't really leave these steps as manual, because you can't really trust humans. They do end up making mistakes. I think the picture says a lot, but automate this process, make it part of your CI/CD pipeline. So from your contract being written to your code being generated, your documentation being generated, and then being implemented, all of this should be an automated process. And always keep the design first step first. So you're going to design it first and then really take it from there. So yeah, design, the relent, mocking we're missing out on. We'll talk about it a little too. But generate your docs in code, you implement it, you publish it, and really automate this whole process so that you can go back and forth on this without losing the consistency that we so badly need and are targeting. Now, I think async API and the tooling has really come a long way, but there are missing tooling, and considering we're doing all of this open source mostly, you should really come in and contribute where you think you can add value. or something that you build for your organization, you can contribute back. But we having a mocking server or a mocking tool for async API would really make parallel development easier. So you'd really go much faster than we can right now. And we can even have contract testing. The code generator itself that we talked about before has templates that are still missing. So you can obviously contribute to that. And even though writing descriptions in a text way is okay, but it's not really pretty. So UI editor would really be nice. Hopefully build all this open source. So yeah, thank you so much. I hope you can take some ideas out of this and really get your pipeline sorted and make consistent APIs. So there are some links here to Spectral, to the async API generator, and then there's a demo for what I was talking about on my GitHub, so you can find it here. And yes, I'm open to any questions or conversations after this. Thank you so much, and great work, Fran and team, for the conference that you have brought along. Thank you.